This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions.
Hi, my name's Mark Hayward. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast. I am a corporate employee with an entrepreneurial mindset, and here are some of my thoughts, ideas and comments. So I want to talk to you about ego today. Now, for an egotistical person, it is a negative thing, and often people are criticised or commented upon because they have a huge ego. That is true, and it can be a negative, but equally there needs to be a certain development of your ego, to use more of a psychological sort of Freudian thing, to be able to be successful and be a functioning and highly functioning person. So I'm going to talk today about the positives and the negatives of ego. So I'm going to first touch base on a person that has too much ego, and this can definitely hold you back because you'll be perceived by people, especially if you're starting the early part of your career and you've got a huge ego because you've got a first from Oxford or whatever, which can be incredibly helpful in a career, but equally it can bring too much of a ego into your character. Now, the worst type of ego is if you don't deserve it. So I think that's one of the biggest turn-offs for people, is the way that people are egotistical with no basis or nothing to back it up with. So I think if you think you're one of those people, there is one simple, relatively fast, it's not a fast rule, but one way of being able to back up someone that has a huge ego is to be able to deliver. Now, whether that's delivering in your business, your career, your job, your hobbies, whether it's something you can make money out of, these are all the different things that you can back up your egotistical nature. So it can hold you back. It can give you a bad perception of people in your business or career, and it is basically something you need to be able to keep in control of. If you think at this stage you're an egotistical or someone with a developed ego, so you need to be able to do that. Too much ego can be slightly delusional. So just to continue that point a little bit further. So if you are, you have no reason to be, to have an ego or to have a developed sense of self, then you're going to cause a lot of problems, and people will start labeling you things like delusional because you think you can do something when clearly you cannot. So I think there's you need to be able to develop that and keep control of that if that is something that you struggle with. Now, on the flip side of that, if you have a negative ego, that can also hold you back. So, and in a point where you need to delegate, it's sometimes difficult to be able to delegate if you have a weak ego, or even if you don't see it as a positive side, because what can happen is you can be egotistical that you can't delegate because you're the most important thing in your business, and only you are the sole person to be able to deliver whatever you need to be able to deliver. I think that is a major problem for people, for especially businessmen and entrepreneurs, because they think they are the only people that will be able to do what they need to do. And it's an important point which I think sometimes gets lost in, because the key point, whether you want to be a solopreneur or whether you want to be an entrepreneur, whether you want to employ people, if you want to go more along the lines of scaling the business, and then you will not be able to scale a business if you are too egotistical and you think you are the only person that can do that job. So as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur that moves into a businessman that starts employing people, then you really need to be able to delegate and believe that other people can do the job just as well, if not better. There's a good phrase, a couple of phrases from sort of Steve Jobs' era, where he said, I only employed A gamers because I wanted the people that were doing the job to be better than me. Now, he was an incredibly gifted person, very actually egotistical person. If you do any sort of research on Steve Jobs, there's a huge amount of ego in there, but he was able to delegate because he employed the best and he demanded the best from all of his employees. So it's sort of a double-edged sword there, because he was on the right side of that sort of ego balance, because although incredibly egotistical, incredibly self-centered, and there was lots of negatives about Steve Jobs, he did hire the best and was able to deliver some monumental deliveries, whether it's the early MacBooks, whether it's the early Macs, I should say, whether it's the iPad, whether it's the iPhone, I've been delivering on time, kind of. I remember listening to his autobiography, and he was not worried about necessarily missing deadlines, because he knew that he was able to deliver a quality that wasn't actually on the market anywhere else. So I think you need to be able to balance the ego which you need to be to make sure that things happen to you, but equally you need to be able to balance that with when you get to the stage of a team, that they are equally as important, if not more important than you, with the ego. So there's just one of these things about ego which has made me think about is the the egotistical person who is delusional that they are able to deliver X product, X service, whatever it is, and they just keep on delivering and delivering and delivering, trying to deliver that. Just the whole story of someone who wants to write a movie, for example, and they could be potentially delusional if they're not good enough to be able to deliver it. But equally, when you're talking about people in business, there is a fine line between being patient and being delusional, and you do need to be able to balance that between being able to deliver something that's worthwhile, and although it's incredibly tough at the start, you know that you can do it, with not being able to deliver, and being accepting that maybe what you're pursuing at the moment is not the best thing at the moment, and you need to try something different. There's a fine line there between doing it until you make it, and equally knowing when that time is not right for you with that particular business model or process. So I think you do need to take a fine line balance. I think probably I've thought about this a lot over the years, hearing this initially, and I did think to myself, sometimes those opportunities which you keep on going on, and you know they're not going to be the best thing for you, but you keep on going because you're determined to prove someone wrong. Often it is proving one person, whether that's your mother, your father, your wife, your sister, or her brother, or whoever it is that you want to prove that you can deliver. Equally, you kind of know if things are going well and if things are going great. and you need to be able to make sure that you're determined in the right thing, because what can happen is, if you're determined to deliver something and it's to prove someone wrong, invariably that might be very negative for you and your business and your career. So I think you often know whether you're just being determined and sticking with your guns to deliver something, even though you've had tough times and it's been hard to get everything right. You know that's the best thing for you and for your business and for your life, versus just something that you think you should be doing, and then you try doing it and you're not great at it, but you want to keep on proving people wrong that that's what you should be doing. So I think you do need to think about that if you find yourself in that scenario, between stopping and continuing. So please take my words on face value and think about them, whether that's actually what the scenario that you've actually found yourself in. The other thing I just want to say is that we touched on it, but this is a little bit more explicitly saying you sometimes have to drop your ego if you're in a team, if you're leading a team, because delivery of your product, service, whatever it is more important than proving that you're right. And that's why employing great people at your business is so important, because it brings the best out of everyone. And sometimes you might need to take a back seat because someone else is capable or can deliver or should deliver sometimes, rather than you. And if that is the case, it's drop your ego for your team. There was a great story in in a book by Jacko Willink and Extreme. Anyway, the book is great, and it gives you extreme ownership, and it's incredibly important to understand that in the Navy SEALs, it's not all about your ego, that sometimes the delivery of the team and delivering a project or a situation is more important than you proving that you're the leader and you're always right. So really important to think about that if you are a leader at this stage. The positive side of having a developed ego is that you actually do believe good things can happen to you. There are people in everyone's life that are negative, and they genuinely don't think good things can happen. I often hear it when someone wins something trivial on well, even to the national lottery or whatever it is. You always hear someone say, "Oh, I never win anything." And I think that's a perception that people get, especially you have opportunities to win things as a child. And I think it's incredibly important that if you win things while you're developing as a child, you can build that ego that you believe that good things can happen to you. And in a lot of cases, when not good things happen, or you don't win, or you don't succeed, then a lot of people are frozen by that. And some of it is help that could have been done by teachers or by family or by mum and dad, but equally being in a sports team, being in a chess team, being in a team that does science, does speeches, whatever it is. If you have a level of success in your life at an early stage, that is the building blocks for that. And equally, if you're not necessarily sporty, you don't have to get that in your life. I got a lot of my determination and my persistence and my doggedness down to playing rugby, but equally people can get awards at school which are winning things, and I think it's incredibly important that these children win things for the right reasons. You don't want people just to be, oh, you turned up every week, thanks a lot, here's a medal, because that doesn't give anyone any preparation for real life. And so I do think you need to try and make sure that your child win things. And equally, if that child is not necessarily great at anything, just your parents telling you that you're good at this, you're good at that, you've succeeded at this, well done for that. It's a big factor. Lots of parents mess you up. I think every parent messes you up to an extent, but I think it's important that as a parent, which I'm now a parent of two, it's important that you are able to build confidence with them, and therefore, even if they're not the greatest at anything at school, to build their confidence, because you never know. Sometimes these people don't have to be exceptionally great when they're a child and achieve greatness at a later stage. So that whole building of the ego is important for parents and family and for schools to be able to do, just so you can believe good things can happen to you as well. And the last thing I'm just going to talk about is arrogance. So arrogance is not a particularly good feeling or emotion for people to respond well with. Again, it sort of loops back to being arrogant and not being able to deliver versus people that are arrogant and are able to deliver because they are good at what they are good at, whether it's a paid job, whether it's a sport, or whether it's whatever it is. So you just need to be able to make sure that if you are on the more arrogant side, that you can actually deliver, because people will call you out. The older you get, people will call you out, and they will make sure that if you're not good enough, that you suffer. So I just want everyone to be made clear that arrogance without anything to back it up with is probably the worst place you can be. So just be mindful of that, and I'm sure everyone will be fine. So we've touched base on ego, positive and negative, and would be really interested if you were able to give me a review on iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher, because I really would like to get some feedback and understand what you guys like, what you guys don't like, what you want me to keep, stop, or start. So please do give me that feedback. It'd be very welcomed on iTunes. You have the opportunity to see a lot of my content on Twitter, which is Mark Hayward 169. Please reach out to me, follow me, comment about any of my podcasts or any of my other comments. Happy to get feedback there as well. I'd also like you to subscribe to the podcast if you liked what you heard. Please subscribe. You can then get it on whatever device, whether it's Android or Apple. You're able to get the podcast dropped into your box that you can collect every week. There are 2 podcasts a week, so please check them out on Thursdays and on Sundays. And the last thing, if you've listened to this and you've been inspired, or you thought it was interesting, or you thought it might be quite good to share with people, please reach out to friends, family, colleagues, whatever whoever that person is. Please just tell one person about this podcast. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, that would be fantastic. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.